Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and this morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Routledge. It's one that I use both in terms of tutoring people, and I also used it very sparingly as a student because they were just coming into the marketplace when I was doing some of my last law exams, and that's many years ago. And it's this question and answer format. We had from Holborn College, HLT and so forth, original suggested solutions some years ago which were despised, I hasten to add, by the examiners. However, they did give you some idea of what the content of a particular answer might be, because in those days it could be quite difficult getting from the lecturer what you actually need to put in your answer to get a good mark. Now, what we've got today is the question and answer books, and I've got one here which is land law, and I've taught land law. It's a difficult subject. This is the book. It's actually for the academic year 2013 to 14, so it's just gone, and there'll be some new ones coming out. This has been written by Martin Dixon, who many of you will know, and Gerwyn, Griffiths and Emma Lees. Now, the book itself is part of this Routledge Q&A series. Let me run through it and show you what's in it. That's the first page, which sets out the various Q&A books. Then that's the actual front bit. There are 10 topic areas which are covered in land law, really trying to reflect the sort of questions you might get. Then you've got the tables of cases, then statutes. Then you go to this bit, which is important, the guide to the companion website. This has got a companion website. There's a little logo there, and there's one on the back. There's the back of the spine and then the back. The companion website is important because that can update things, and it will give you additional tools which you can use for your revision. That's the front bit. Do read that and have a look at how to use the companion website. And there are some, it's difficult for you to probably see it here, but there are some basic tips on how to use the actual website. Then there's a standard introduction which has been written by the writers, and they talk about essay problems and examinations. Remember that the vast bulk of the questions today are actually where you get the marks of the problem questions. The essay, they call them essays, but they also are called narrative answers. Those you generally don't tend to get quite so much in the way of marks for, because they're more bread and butter type of answers. You've also got a common pitfalls area, which I think is extremely helpful. Then you get into the book itself. You've got quite a lot of diagrams. For instance, that's a particular area that is covering leases, and you can see the types of lease that you've got. You've also got other things. For instance, this is freehold covenants. Again, you've got little diagrams which help. Then obviously at the back there is a very small index at the back, but the whole purpose behind this Q&A series is to give tailored information, if you excuse the pun, on how to go about answering questions. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I have written a couple of reviews with a couple of these Q&A books, which I've used myself. Routledge, I'm not really aware that I've done these reviews, but I decided that they were very important because they are actually very much part of the teaching cycle when we get to the revision side of the course. Once you've done your assignments and the essays and problem solving and had all of the tutorials, you then need to start working out what you're going to say and how you're going to formulate your answers. So we say these question and answer topics for the difficult subject of English land law are brilliant for your final revision programme, and that's exactly what I think they are, because they point you in the right direction. Remember, you are the person who's going to write the exam, so it's up to you to have done the necessary preparation, and this will help you. What we say is this: what Martin Dixon, Gerwyn, Griffiths and Emma Lees have produced here is an excellent statement of the main points of study for this substantive law area, covering 10 topic areas for English land law, and it caters for undergraduates looking for a departure from the traditional law texts and revision materials available. It's not a model answer. It's not, obviously suggested solutions can be used. It's to try to point you in the right direction, because your answers in the exam hall are going to be your own anyway. And so you've got to formulate how to do them, to think and be prepared, so that when you go into the hall, you've got very little time, you can get all the stuff down and you answer what the question is, has been set. As the publishers Routledge state, you can always trust the Q&A books because they will improve your exam technique, because that's what this is about. They'll allow you to practice essay or narrative and problem questions and answers. They will avoid, or try to indicate to you to avoid the most common pitfalls and errors, and learn what it takes to raise your grades, because grades are the big thing today. I mean, my main aim was to just get through, but the exams that I sat many years ago now, and the first law exam I sat was 45 years ago, which gives you some idea of how things have changed dramatically in terms of the books available and the way we went about, the way we now go about things. Grades are always important, but in those days it was certainly for the LLB London external programme, which is what I sat. The difficulty there was that you really did have a problem. They didn't award first, so you really had a problem getting anything up to about 60-odd%. Things are slightly different now because you can see the papers you've submitted and you can have appeals, so none of that really existed when I did it. The companion website, just going back to the book, also gives you additional advice and exercises online as well, and it's up to date, and I think a great additional learning tool. What the authors have set out here in this excellent Q&A book is to give a formidable explanation of what is really recognised as one of the hardest subjects to follow. That's English land law. It's conducted in easily understandable terms for what is a difficult area of law, and it's different for a lot of people because they won't have come across the concept of land law in any form of detail prior to looking at these books. And for many, to study and teach it is actually, may look quite easy, but it's actually quite hard. It's statute based, and you've got to know your way around the statute book as well, and all the specific Acts of Parliament. As with all the Routledge textbooks, this particular title is one of the best on the market because it's an introduction to the way in which land law operates in England and Wales. And I think the self-testing that you get when you go through and you look and you think about what's happening and you ask the questions, it will assist you as a student, both with this and the other texts that Routledge produce, with a measure of progress as the Q&A book develops. We also consider the book has a much wider potential readership for anyone interested in this area of topical law, because a lot of people are touched now by matters concerning their conduct of land law issues. So it's important to know what your basic rights are. One of the main reasons why we feel Routledge produce such excellent legal textbooks are the value, both in terms of its cost and its content, and the way in which the authors, all legal experts, have been able to explain substantive law issues in such a readable fashion, and I think that's very helpful. Some of the older textbooks have tended to be frankly very boring and very difficult to follow sometimes because the English has not been the easiest. I'm not going to make any comments because obviously we're in a new era now. Now, for both tutors and students, a decision on which textbook or revision book to use is always going to be difficult, but we think it's clear from the feedback we've got that Routledge offer one of the best. They tend to lead the field, and the Q&A series is also very good. As I've said before, it's not, these are not model answers, because it's your own work that you are actually producing in the exam hall. Many of the titles that Routledge have produced also have these excellent links to the websites that obviously marked the companion websites, and they add a great deal of assistance to the hard-pressed learner. We'd also say that the formats for Routledge are helpful because the books are very much of a mainstream formula for today's teaching methods for legal texts, and I think it eases the student into the methods of legal reasoning for those just beginning their legal studies and for all undergraduates. Remember, you're normally doing this in your second year in any event. This certainly helped us with the preparation that we had to go through all those years ago, and so do ensure that you look very carefully at all the titles they have. For the Q&A series, do look at the guide to the companion website, as I've said, because you get study tips and advice, and then read the introduction in detail, which I showed you at the beginning, because they deal with the important matters such as the length of the answers. Remember how much time you've got in the exam hall, common pitfalls, expressing a point of view, always a dangerous area, you've got to be a bit careful with that, and suggestions for exam technique. The Q&A answer structure is also of high significance, I think, when you come to sketch out your actual answer, when you're in the exam hall and you're trying to think about what to do against the clock. So for us reviewing the book, the companion website, I say, is the innovation. Do look at the features at the beginning of the book, and I think it will assist with your learning. It covers all the main topic areas the undergraduate and professional law syllabus actually sets out, and it provides a full understanding of each with the supporting resources from the web, and it will give the student an indispensable foundation of understanding for what is an important area of land law, and one that you will find crops up in practice. You've got to have this because it's a core subject. There's much food for thought, obviously, throughout this excellent undergraduate Q&A for its topicality and on where we are now and where we're going with current matters involving real property in the 21st century. So thank you very much, Routledge. Let me just show you the book again. So a little bit of blurb on the front. Quite a lot of stuff on the back, actually, which sets it out. But as I say, these diagrams in particular, this is the miscellaneous problems at the back. Let me just open that up. You can see applying the law. Yeah, that idea of what they're trying to put ahead. They give you a checklist of things that you might include, because remember, you're not going to have everything, even in your answers in the exam hall. You're not going to have everything at your fingertips, but it is important to get as many things across as you can. Now, what you've got is within the Q&A book, you've got a series of questions all the way through. This is question 25, it just runs through the numbers. So you have the question itself, which is a problem question. Then it tells you how to answer the question. Remember, it's got to be your own work. Then there's a structure, which again you may want to put a little bit into when you're working out how to answer the question. If it's a complex question in the exam, you may want to work out how you're going to do it, and then you've got the actual answer set out. Now, some people have said to me, oh well, it takes an awfully long time to do all of this. Remember, the detail here is everything. You're not going to be able to put all of this down in your answer. And it also says at the end, don't be tempted to do certain things. In other words, don't go off the subject matter. Anyway, thank you to Martin and his team. That is Gerwyn, Griffiths and Emma Lees, for producing what I think is a really first-class assistance for the revision cycle. Thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.